Welcome to another edition of the Royal Alliance UK podcast, episode number 63, Brock, Hock, and two smoking Tyrells. My name's Matthew Turner. Thank you so much for joining us once again. Joined by my co-host, Anthony Fitzpatrick. Ryan McCluskey, how you doing, boys?
Yeah, good, thanks. We're riding the crest of a wave right now. Nation's jumping for joy. Oh, and I'm full on German tears. So I've got a full belly.
Yeah, absolutely ecstatic. Obviously, the football's come first, and first time we've beaten them since 2000. So gonna drink this in for some time to come yet.
Yeah, I'm still in awe and a bit of shock, to be honest. England 2-0 winners today against Germany. If you don't want to hear us talk about soccer, you can wind on about 5 minutes because we're gonna. England 2-0 winners, goals from Sterling in the 75th and Kane in the 86th to wrap it up. England's first knockout win against Germany in 55 years, and as Ant said, first in a competitive match for over 20. So some history has been made today, boys. And I don't know about you, but my throat's a bit sore. My voice, I think it sounds a bit hoarse from screaming at the bloody TV too much. How about you guys? Are you holding up okay?
Well, my fingers hurt. I've been tweeting vigorously, so I think I've got a bit of pain in my wrist. My fingers are a bit warm. I've said some things. I don't regret them. Don't take them back. Still not happy with Kane. Yeah, he scored, but up until everything at that point, I still stand by my words. I've lost a few followers, but I don't mind, like you say. No, but other than that, no, it was all worth it in the end. Like you say, he got all that hate and he channeled it and scored. So, if anything, we did him a favour.
Yeah, I thought we were better all game. To be fair, Germans were a bit disappointing today, but obviously not gonna complain about that one. Thought England played well for the most part. There are a few bits we can get to grips with, but I mean, going forward, there's every chance we could go on and get to the centerpiece now. Obviously, not counting any chickens just yet, but I think we look good. I think we're getting slightly better. But
I think we're growing into the tournament for sure, but at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to being clinical. I do think we were the better side throughout, but if you have a look at the clear-cut chances, England had basically just the two, and they scored both. And the Germans had two, and one was saved early on from Werner, and then Muller missed the second one as well. And if the Germans put both of those away, they're 2-1 up before Kane hits his one 5 minutes to go. So I think both teams had a similar amount of chances despite England's dominance, and I think there's a lot more room for improvement in the latter stages.
Oh man, when Muller went through on goal 1-on-1, I thought that was it. I'd stopped. I already thought it was 1-1 because he always scores against us. Always.
Yeah, like you say, you expect a lot better from him, someone like him, don't you?
Yeah, really.
That was disappointing.
But you could see him going off. He was not happy when he got substituted right at the end. He was mouthing off and whatever, and it was like, your career might be done now in international football, man. So enjoy it while you can.
I put the message up saying I'd not heard his name all match, and I hadn't. I think up until that point, he barely touched the ball. But, I don't think he can whiff at his career. He's got a World Cup behind him. He's got a lot of accolades behind him. So I think he's had a good career, all told.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I guess it's sort of the same as Aaron Rodgers in that you can acknowledge that while you've actually achieved the pinnacle once, that maybe how good you are and how good that team was should have led to perhaps more success than you've had.
I suppose it's weird to put it like that, isn't it? Because I suppose Germany are our Green Bay Packers of international football. They just always seem to get the better of us when it matters and have won a lot more than we have.
And that's why it's so sweet.
I do really worry for the state of German football. Like, I'm not being funny, but if we had the likes of Werner and Havertz, like putting everything on their shoulders, I really wouldn't be that hopeful for the future. They've lost likes of Klose, Muller's great there, Mario Gomez, like these dependable false nine solo forwards that they've relied on for years. And for me right now, they just don't have those. The team is aging immensely. Kroos is losing that touch. So they're in a real transition period. So it's going to be a few years before they're back at it, I think.
Right, we've wasted enough of your time on England football as much as we are riding the riding the wave, as Ryan said. But let's move on to a bit of Lions football. And to start with, we're going to go through the news, and then we're going to talk about the defense and what that might look what might look like for the 2021 year. And there's not much news to go on, but we'll start with there are no Detroit Lions in PFF's top 50 list for the preseason. They did talk about who just missed out, and Frank Ragnow was one of those listed as potentially the top centre in the league, but no centres made it into the top 50 list. TJ Hawkinson has earned a spot on the NFL's all under 25 team as a tight end, and he's also been awarded the heavyweight championship wrestling style belt at Tight End University. It's not a particularly impressive looking thing, but he looked pretty happy with himself, and that's great. But there's no indication as to why he's a heavyweight champ. But hey, anything that makes him happy in amongst great company is good for me. And finally, the NFL have announced there's going to be no supplemental draft for the second season in a row. The Lions haven't picked someone in the supplemental draft for almost 30 years. The pick was last done for the Lions in 1982, picking Kevin Robinson for the cost of a 1983 ninth round pick, although he didn't end up making the team. The supplemental draft, if you aren't aware of what that is, especially if you're from the UK, it's a draft after the draft for players who become eligible to play in the NFL for some reasonable quirk. So maybe they gain a year of eligibility because of some reason why they might have had one taken away in the past. That could be disciplinary or something like that, or academic reasons, or other players that for some reason weren't eligible during the draft. You can submit an application to have a player, and it costs you whatever you'd like to bid for him in your next draft, and he gets awarded to the team that bid the most for that player. The last player to be picked was actually in 2019, the supplemental draft. Anything in those news stories that you find interesting, boys?
Well, starting with the supplemental draft, I'm pretty sure the last player was taken was Sam Beal. I think he was a cornerback. I think he went to the Giants. Don't know if he's ever played. I know it's for people like say that graduate late. They have to stay, take some summer classes, but the players realistically never make it. Like, for one reason or another, there's very little success rate in the supplemental draft. So it's a shame because it's a group of guys that get to miss out on possible selections this year. They've gone too late to go undrafted. The rosters will be cut, so they're going to have to potentially wait until later on to get signed. But it's a shame that the belt looks cheesy, but I love the thought of a tight end U. Like, I think it's fantastic. I see, because you look at the guys, the caliber there, like you say, like the likes of Kittle, working with them is like his second season probably don't happen without that off season, working with some of these elite Premier tight ends. So I think it's fantastic because it's becoming such a valued position in the league now. Whereas if you go back maybe 10 years ago, tight ends, you could take them or leave them, but now they're dynamic weapons, and that's shown how high Kyle Pitts was taken.
What about you, Anne? Anything stick out to you there?
Not really. It's been a bit of a quiet news week, hasn't it? Anyone who follows our Twitter knows I love to take shots at PFF's ranking lists and whatnot on there because they're usually very disrespectful towards the Lions. But I think, I don't think we were expecting anybody in the top 50. I think Ragnow being close is probably fair, and I don't really think beyond him there's anyone who would be troubling that. Although the list that I did take issue with this week was the 32 coaches and Dan Campbell getting put down at number 31. Now, I know he's a new coach. He's not overseen a snap in the NFL yet, but this just feels like, again, the national media going in there to put a boot in him. I mean, how in God's name Nick Sirianni ends up in the list above him when he's going to be an absolute bust with the Eagles? In 12 months, 31 teams, if given the choice between those two, will pick Campbell, every single one of them. I don't know how he's managed to get above. You can just see from the look of him that he's going to be a failure there, but I don't know. These things come and go, and it just makes us all stronger. Throw all the hate towards our team, and it'll make us stronger, and we'll prove you all wrong over the next few years. I don't know. It's not much of a great deal else. I didn't actually know the supplemental draft existed for me because, like you say, it's not a very common thing, and it's very commonly used. And I saw a very good article the other day, which I'd not stopped to consider. Obviously, I think you mentioned last week about the NCAA getting told they've got to start paying players now. Well, they've said if players are going to start getting paid to play in college, then this is going to start affecting drafts, because those, round 6, round 7 UDFA guys, are they going to suddenly think, you know what, I'm going to stay at college, take my paychecks, and not declare for the draft? So things like the supplemental draft and that may become invalid very quickly if it's more profitable to play at college for a few more years as opposed to going to the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't get picked up by a team, or you do and then get cut and spend the entire year not playing versus staying in college, getting another year's worth of education and getting paid for it, absolutely. It's a fair point. I was about to say the same as you. How in God's name is Nick Sirianni above Campbell? It doesn't make any sense to me. Everything I've seen from Sirianni, and I guess I'll have seen as much as every national media guy, so it's probably the same sort of viewpoint that they have on Campbell. So maybe it's slightly unfair. But everything I've seen from Sirianni, he screams at me, coach speak bullshit. Someone who's going to preach what everyone kind of thinks that he should say. But I don't feel like there's anything going on between the eyes. Like, I don't see any ounce of something that's going to be inspiring, any sort of, oh, this guy's got a scheme up his sleeve, or like he's going to pull out a play here. Like, I just don't buy it. Like with Campbell, he's got the upfrontness to go, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but the guy I've hired is, and I'm going to let him do what he wants. Like, I trust that guy. But Sirianni is like, the fuck is this guy? Sorry, but I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. Anyway, right, from that rant, let's move on to the defense. And we've heard in recent weeks and months that the Lions have come forward to talk about the fact that they will be lining up in the 3-4 based scheme. And there's a good piece from Jeff Risden on this from the 23rd of May, so about 5 weeks ago. And he talks about the 3-4, but not as you know it. So for those of you worrying about this being a 3-4 that might resemble the previous Patricia years, you want to think again, because this is actually, in all but name, a 5-2 scheme, really. So the 5-2 scheme will have 3 down linemen, 2 outside linebackers who are actually primarily just stand-up ends who are going to be rushing the majority of the time, and only very, very limited amount of time are going to be dropping into coverage. And he draws a comparison to the Green Bay Packers, who also run this scheme. So he says something along the lines of, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, and Rashawn Gary, they're not linebackers, but they play in this scheme at outside linebacker, primarily rushing the passer. Now, Preston Smith does drop into coverage every now and again. It's something he can do. He's very athletic and he's good in coverage, but it's not what he's for. It's to keep the defense honest. So the fact, that we've got Dom Capers, who effectively founded this defense, kind of points to the fact that this is exactly what we're going to do, and that you don't have to worry about Romeo and Flowers in the base scheme dropping into coverage particularly, because we're going to be rushing 5 the majority of the time. And boys, if you have a look at the Saints defense in 2020, which is where Aaron Glenn's come from, the blitz rate in 2020 they had was 31.8%, good for 14th in the league. Can I ask you, is that exciting for the 2021 Detroit Lions, considering what we've been used to over the years, the last 3 or 4 especially?
It can only be a positive. I mean, when it comes to blitz rates, we've been so low in the past few years in terms of trying to blitz quarterbacks. But I think primarily the thing is we've not had the personnel to rush the quarterbacks. We've not had a good defensive line to start with to be able to create gaps and pressure there. And, edge rushers have been few and far between. I mean, if it wasn't for Romeo Okwara coming through last year, the whole, that part of our game would have been completely hopeless. There was no one who was really getting through and doing anything. Flowers was injured. Okwara was in, the other Okwara was injured, and we've just, we've had nobody there. So to see now that we're going to be blitzing a lot more, it's going to be good, because we need to start getting at quarterbacks, because we need to start taking pressure off this secondary. because we've not invested in the secondary really this year, apart from Melifon, who's a good signing, but there's a lot we need to do there, and we've got to protect them as good as we can and hope that those few players back there start to realise their potential. And we've got the players and the scheme to do it now. The players they've drafted, the players they've brought in are all fit towards this, and hopefully we're going to see a massive improvement going forward. So it's something we should definitely be looking forward to.
I agree. When you think of Detroit Lions football, you think on defense. First down, yeah, pretty good. Second down, oh, we've got to stop. We've got them behind the chains. Third down, oh, we don't want to get off the field. We'll just send 3. We'll let them convert on 3rd and 7 and give up a really soft first down. And then they'll do that and they'll just march down the field. We have been so susceptible and not been able to get off the field and seeing out defensive drives, sending no pressure off the edges, which has been absolute criminal for years, and it's cost us time and time again. Like you say, we're just giving them an easy escape route. If you think if we're going to send 4 or 5 guys on a blitz rate, that'd be fantastic. We drafted Jared Davis, who had primarily turned into a pure blitzer, and we still got very little out of him because we probably weren't using him right. And it pains me to say that because I've never been his biggest fan. If we upped that blitz rate to 30-40%, and we had him on the field rushing 4 and 5, there's a very good chance he would have been someone that had got through, could have got to the quarterback. But like I say, time and time again, we have just been unable to give the quarterback anything more to think about. And he's had time to pick off the secondary. And as Ant alluded to, like I say, last year, if it wasn't for Romeo, we would have really struggled in the sacks department getting pressure. I think from the last few years, we've only had a few guys that have managed 6+ sacks in a year. We had Kerry Hyder Jr., we had Anthony Zettel, but then, like I say, we've had guys that have totally disappointed. Like, unfortunately, like Ziggy Ansah, he should have been the answer, but unfortunately, he wasn't. Like, he gave him such a praise, but maybe we didn't use him properly. Injuries slowed him down. We have got to commit to hassling the quarterback, using these, like say, what it could be a 5 front. We've got to get the best out of it. Macquarie's just got big bags, and now it's time for him to try earn it. And that means, like say, keeping the defense honest, dropping him into coverage. He might get the odd interception. If he drops there and he fools a quarterback, something like hand in his hands, but he has got to get on the edge, even if he's shown as an outside linebacker. Another double-digit season, I think, is coming his way sack-wise, so it can't be a bad thing. Don Capers it's like father time. He's been a genius of defense in the NFL for years, decades.
Yeah, it all goes back to that. The problems with the defensive line we've had again. We've not had one since Sir left. Really, we've not had that dominating guy on there who can, like you said, with Jared Davis, been a blitzer when there's no line, when there's no gaps appearing in the offensive line for them to blitz through and to get at quarterbacks. There's not that much they can do about it. And I think a lot of guys have been very hampered by that over the years. But what we've done in this draft is we've gone and got guys who are going to create those gaps now. And we got guys behind them with the pace who are going to get through and are going to create chance. So hopefully, we're going to see what we've been missing for so long.
I hope so. I mean, I was just thinking about playing Madden, and you get onto a sort of 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situation, and the bloody commentator every single time says, I expect to see pressure here. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's because it's said every time. It's a trope. But you know why it's a trope? It's because it's what you should do. And we have been doing it. It's so criminal, as Ryan has said, that we don't do it. So hopefully, thank God, the offense isn't going to know what's coming, because maybe we won't blitz, but maybe we will. And it's that indecision which might cause a little bit of hesitation in the offense, which allows us to get home. Moving on to another article, there's one from Sideline Report by Fansided, just talking about Aaron Glenn and his history. This was before the Lions came out and talked about exactly what they were going to do, but he examined Aaron Glenn's history to try and predict the scheme and actually did very, very well with it. So I thought it was interesting just to go through that quickly. So Aaron Glenn played for the grandfather, Bill Parcells, at the Jets, and played for Don Capers in Houston. Both 3-4 schemes, very successful 3-4 schemes. Went on to a couple of other places before landing as a head coach in one of the supplementary leagues, and then ended up actually as DD coach at New Orleans, where obviously we acquired him from, which was a 4-3 scheme in 2017 to 19, and then a primarily 4-2-5 nickel-based scheme in 2020 that actually featured 3 safeties the majority of the time. So he's had a versatile playing and coaching career in both fronts. But the fact that he actually played for Parcells and Capers, and then Capers was brought on to assist, John Poole suggested from Sideline Report that indicated a 3-4 scheme was coming, but that the scheme could be multiple, that he's got experience playing with a lot of different schemes and a lot of different defensive coordinators who have given him the wisdom to, be effective in this scheme. And the other team that always gets referenced with the Lions at the moment is the Rams, of course, with Brad Holmes coming in. And while obviously he isn't deciding who the defense is going to be, he is scouting for these schemes. And the Rams, one of their features, especially in the last couple of years and last year with Brandon Staley before he moved on to the Chargers, was the use of a light box. So in terms of run defense, there's an article by Ramswire, which was from November 2020 by Cameron De Silva, and talking about how Brandon Staley had actually changed the defense from Wade Phillips the year before. And so under Wade Phillips, he had the Rams had a light box rate of 62%. So that's generally aligning in 2 high safety shells and 6 or fewer defenders in the box. 62% in 2019 for 11th in the league. Under Brandon Staley, that was 85%, first in the league, 6 men or fewer in the box. And yet, as of November, they had conceded no deep touchdowns that year and were tied for the most interceptions on deep passes. So there's an indication there that as things progress for the Lions, as more draft picks come this way, perhaps safeties and cornerbacks are progressing and maybe left on islands to really go and get it and be trusted to defend deep, that this team is going to try and defend with a light box against run D, much like the Packers do right now, actually, and really commit resources in the backfield to stopping the pass, which is an interesting thought. Anything from what I've said there, boys, that you want to pick up on quickly?
Yeah, I'll go. It's fascinating, like you say, like they're trying their best to shut down the pass, and they're inviting the run, but with a light box. Like it's an interesting concept. Like I say, they're almost ghosts. Like you say, behind that defensive line, that box is very weak. Like you say, 2 high safeties. So you're basically saying anything after like 10, 20 yards, you're not going to get. We'll give you the run, like you say, and if we need to be, we're going to come someone fast down at the box and we're going to meet the running back, but they're willing them to run on them. And they're also having success in stopping it. Like I say, that is a 20% jump. It's quite a lot. When you're able to spare men in the box for the back end, that's great for your defense, because that will help turnover differential massively. If you're able to get those key takeaways on the back end, which is something we've struggled at for such a long time, like that is something that can flip the field and change momentum instantly. And it's easy to see why Brandon Staley became a head coach so quickly, because what he did with, like, say, that a lot of rookies as well, like say they had, I think, Jordan Fuller. So they took these young pieces, put them in their secondary, and they managed to still create that same amount of effect on the back end, almost fear. Like, I don't want to go over there, 2 high safeties. I'm not throwing anything over the middle. I'll hand it off and let you try run at them. Like say, like they put the fear in God in some teams, and that is something that we need to have. They can't see it, but they still don't want to attack it. So that's something that I'm really looking forward to, because we've got these same kind of young personnel that Aaron Glenn and Aubrey Pleasant can hopefully try to mould that Rams defense on.
Yeah, I think it does help that you can have one shutdown corner best in the league potentially in Jalen Ramsey. You can just kind of leave him and, give the additional help elsewhere so those young guys aren't on their own. But then also with the light box, if you've got Aaron Donald, you're still getting pressure. So I do think that they are a product of having the 2 best players in their position in the league to be able to make that success. But the other part of it is gap assignments, making sure that if you're playing a light box 6 or less, that everyone has their gaps assigned and you are disciplined. You don't over pursue, that you make sure that teams, if they do run, they're not getting through your gap. So maybe they're bouncing it outside, being met by a nickel corner to make a tackle rather than being met by a linebacker and going through them. So, there's a lot of trust in a light box in the fact that they're going to make their tackles. So they're going to hopefully be well disciplined, this team. We shall see. Right. I'm going to talk to you quickly now about the possible formations that this team might use and have a look at the coverages as well. So the formations that we're going to use, as I mentioned earlier, it's going to be a base 3-4, although considering what's been said, that can easily flip to a 4-3 if you think that Romeo or Flowers could perhaps drop back into coverage as an outside linebacker. Worth 1 rushes, that instantly becomes a 4-man front and 3 dropping. So that's very quickly switches. The other formations are your basic sub packages, your nickel, so that's a 4-2-5 or a 3-3-5. Your dime package, so that's an extra DB from that, so that's a 4-1-6 or a 3-2-6. That's usually 4 cornerbacks and 2 safeties. If you go 3 corners and 3 safeties, that's called a giant dime package. You can have other funky formations, especially in 3rd and longs. You might be looking at 2 down linemen, a 2-4-5 or a 2-3-6, and that's going to be especially fun. I think we can see that on the field a few times this year. In terms of likely coverages, Aaron Glenn, or at least the Saints last year, especially favoured 2-man coverage. It's another name for cover 2-man. So 2 safeties playing deep and man coverage underneath. They actually played cover 1 the most. They played 2-man the most of any team in the league, but cover 1 was still their primary coverage. They might also use cover 2 zone, so as opposed to man underneath the 2 safeties over the top, you'll have zone coverage underneath, cover 3 and quarters coverage. And how's that going to look then? Well, primarily on first down, it's going to be your base formation. 1st and 10. What else can you really do but go to your base a majority of the time? A little bit of nickel thrown in there. As I said before, Aaron Glenn in 2020 did have to go through the Saints actually playing 4-2-5 with 3 safeties the majority of the time. So you might see that being played on first down. But as that opens up to obvious passing situations, that really opens up to more nickel and dime and those funky formations I mentioned earlier, such as the 2-4-5 and the 2-3-6. Got some notes from PFF and how the Saints run that defense. So Dennis Allen, defensive coordinator, he's put together an excellent unit. They play a lot of different coverages, often starting too high and then rotating down. They use a lot of zone coverage as well. The best facet of their defense is the 5-0 and 6-0 fronts they use on 3rd down to confuse offensive lines and get to the quarterback. The team's pressure rate on 3rd down ranked 2nd best in the NFL. So to me, it's clear that misdirection is going to be a fundamental part of this defense. They might start in one look and then rotate to a different one, but that's only going to work, as I was mentioning to Ryan earlier, actually, that you have guys who can start in the primary look and be taken seriously in that position and rotate into another look that they're going to be effective in. So I just wanted to have a quick discussion on maybe who the players in the roster are that might be that sort of versatile guys. So we've mentioned already that the team are actually planning for Flowers and Aquara to drop into coverage at least a limited amount of the time. So, it's going to be rushing 5 maybe, but maybe it's going to be rushing 5 with an inside linebacker coming down the hill and an outside linebacker dropping into coverage. Maybe it's only going to be rushing 4 with one of the outside linebackers rushing and one of them dropping back into coverage. Maybe both inside linebackers will rush and both outsides will drop back into coverage. I think that's going to be very, very rare, but it could happen. Those are the obvious ones. Are there any other guys on that defense, especially the starting defense, who you think can play in multiple positions? And so you might be able to show one look and then rotate into something different. Ryan, start with you, man.
There's, like you say, I think one of the potential weapons we got, like you say, has to be Derek Barnes. Like I say, where he's going to play, he's going to be very interesting because primarily due to his size, you'd put him as inside linebacker. He's got that speed, and like you say, when the outside linebacker does drop, you'll be able to potentially blitz him. You'll be able to drop one, try to see if they can get a pick over the middle, or send some pressure through the gap with Derek Barnes. But it wouldn't surprise me either to see him rotate, do a stunt, put him outside linebacker on the edge, like you say, because I think he's got that raw speed coming off the outside where doesn't necessarily have to swim a guy. He can just use pure speed, like I say, try beat a guard or a tackle. I think he's not someone that will have to get on that handsy. So I think he's someone that will be able to maintain that outside leverage and keep contained because he's got that pure athleticism, and he'll be able to get the quarterback possibly flushed out. Or if they do try to bounce out the running back, like he's going to be able to seal that edge. So I think he's someone that you'll see flip from strength inside and out. So I think he's going to be a very versatile weapon on the defense.
How about you, Ant? Anyone occur to you as someone who might be some sort of he's lining up in one location and then you see him somewhere else on the field because he's rotated out of it?
I don't know. I think for me, it's going to be a lot of the guys almost that we've forgotten about where we're going to be looking here. I mean, you're looking at your Austin Bryants, you're looking at Julian Aquara. I think that Julian will play multiple different positions, I think, because they're doing the same with Romeo there. But I don't know. I feel like the guys we've got in the draft, the ones we've brought in from free agency, I feel like they're pretty set in the positions they play. So it's probably going to be some of those, I say, some of the ones who've maybe been out injured, some of the ones who've, I don't know really. It's a bit hard to say. I'm not. I think definitely Julian Aguara is going to be playing multiple positions. I think he's got a lot to prove this year, and they'll probably try and utilize him in a load of different ways. So we'll see.
Yeah, Julian's definitely someone I think is going to play in that role. The team have already spoken about the prospect of Collins playing on the edge, and I don't expect that to happen particularly often, but you could see him line up inside linebacker and then rotate into an outside linebacker role, perhaps. Dean Marlowe at the Bills, when he came on the field, he was primarily the third safety, but actually ended up playing a majority of the time in the box, not as a true safety. So I think he could possibly be your sort of dime backer, could come in, maybe play in the box, maybe play a kind of little bit of slot cornerback, but then maybe rotate into a 3-high look. Levi is someone who occurred to me someone of his frame has the ability to play anywhere along the line. The only place that I would say his frame doesn't lend himself to is nose tackle, and yet that's where he played during college and very successfully. So he's someone I think equally can be versatile. I don't know whether Charles Harris has it in him to possibly drop back a bit. I know really he's a one-trick pony and has only ever succeeded on the edge and didn't do very well otherwise in his early career. Quentin Dunbar and Ife Melifonwu could possibly end up at safety, at least in bit parts. Obviously, Melifonwu, it's been spoken about a bit, the prospect of him moving to safety. So starting at corner and kind of rotating back into that cover 3-high look could be on the cards for him, perhaps. I'm not sure. Or indeed the reverse, starting out with 3-high and rotating into a kind of outside corner role, perhaps. But I think there's possibilities there, and there'll be stuff that happens in training camp that we're not able to see right now or predict that says, actually, no, that guy can do that. I mean, if Tavai actually genuinely ends up shedding that weight, then him playing on the edge, which is actually what they tried to make him do in the previous scheme a bit more, might become a bit more of a likelihood, because him dropping into coverage, maybe with a bit more speed, is a bit more likely, but also him actually being able to beat a man off the edge is a bit more likely. So fingers crossed for
I'm just
a bit
looking
more
here.
this direction. Yeah.
Speaking of this, I remembered I saw a thread on other day on Twitter from a Forrester at F Solomon 12. It's about Sean Dion Hamilton, the first player we actually signed this year, and he actually believes that he could very well be a starter on this team. He says, a good level of patience when he's trying to shed a block or when he's coming downhill as an inside linebacker on the strong side. but also that he is when he's playing on the weak side, he has got good length, like you say. He uses his hands well, and he's able to also maintain and shed blocks, so he can get off quickly. So he could possibly swap between that safety and a weak side inside linebacker role. So he's someone that may rotate across the line, and he's someone that's actually not got much attention. Like I say, he has got previous playing experience in Cleveland. It's not the biggest, but it sounds like he has a good blend of patience, but also speed. So he's coming downhill. If his hole gets filled, he might be able to stunt or change sides and possibly mirror running back. So that could be a possible name to watch out for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that might put Tavai's place in jeopardy. I'm not sure he's going to get through Jalen Reeves-Maybin and that contract he's been given and his special teams upside. But I think that Tavai's probably the next guy on the block there. So he's definitely, they both got uphill battles to make this roster, I think. Right, just to finish this up, let's have a look at the possible formations. And I guess who you think might start in various points. I've tried to project what I can, but I'm really a beginner at this. So, let's do it together and see what we think. So our base 3-4 scheme, 3 down linemen. I've got Ali McNeil at the nose. Sub would be John Penasini. And then the 2 defensive tackles, the 4-eye Michael Brockers, and behind him, Nick Williams and Austin Bryant. And then Deshaun Hand at the 3 tech or 5 tech on the other side, I think is actually, if he remains fit, possibly going to take the starter reps. Behind him, Levi Onwuzurike. On the outside linebacker roles, I've got Trey Flowers and Romeo Okwara. Behind them, I've got Charles Harris and Julian Okwara. Inside linebackers, Jamie Collins and Alex Anzalone, backed up by Barnes, Tavai, and Jalen Reeves-Maybin. Cornerbacks of Akuda and Oruwariye, backed up by Dunbar and Melifonwu. And then free safety of Walker, backed up by Dean Marlowe, and strong safety of Will Harris, backed up by CJ Moore. I saw Ant, you vehemently disagree with one of those picks. What do you think?
There's two there. I'm not starting Deshaun Hand. I'm sorry, but he's had enough time now. The injuries have been piling up. We're constantly getting let down by his health. He can be a backup and he can prove himself that way, but I'm sticking Levi straight in for me. I'm sticking with Aleem at nose tackle because he's the pure nose. He's going to be great. I agree with Brockers, but start with Levi. We're in a rebuild year. Let's get the rookies some good snap times, providing he earns it, of course. Obviously, if he's not earning it in camp, then he doesn't deserve to. But if we're assuming they're all fit and ready to go, then Levi goes there at the 5 tech position. And I think the only other one I'd say with your linebackers, I wouldn't be ranking Anzalone so high. He's not done anything in the last 2 years at all. And he's got more to prove than anybody on this team. And I'd probably even be putting Barnes up in front of him because I think Barnes looks really good. And again, he's one of those who'll benefit the more snaps you give him. And he's going to be the prime beneficiary of us having an actual nose tackle for a change. I think Ali McNeil and Barnes, between them, he's going to create some room, and Barnes is really going to do some damage in that backfield. So I'd bump him up and stick Anzalone down because he won't do that.
What do you think, Ryan?
Did you say Jeff and Amani?
I did.
You did. No, I'm going to say Jeff and Quinton. I think Quinton Dunbar is going to be someone that's actually going to come into camp from day one, and he's going to show why he's very experienced. He's a savvy veteran. He's picked number 1, so he's not there to be a mentor. He's not there to look after these younger guys. He wants to have a bit of a revival year and show what he can, like he did back in Washington. So I think they're my 2 starting corners. I do trust Quinton. I think Armani this year it's a big year for him. He's got to show more than a few flashes, or his days are possibly numbered going forward. But I do agree. We've seen what Deshaun Hand can do when he's healthy. He has shown that he has been a presence. He can cause some disruption on that line. Like, he's got a lot of good technique. It's if the shoulder can hold up. If it's bummed out, then we're going to see that pretty quickly. But if he's healthy, I'm more than happy for him to start the season and let Levi learn off him. Michael Brockers is key. Like, I think he is going to be the anchor of this line. Like, he's going to help free up the holes. I'm a big believer without him, Aaron Donald wouldn't have done so well. Well, he would have still done as well, but I think he doesn't get as much praise as he does for some of those stats he's put up. I'm not sure where the safeties, like say, with Will Harris, for me, is a bit hit or miss. Like say, maybe we weren't using him properly. Tracy Walker will be the first name on paper for sure, because he's an experienced starter and he's shown his flashes. CJ Moore, I can see a lot of rotation there. Like I say, if Will Harris does start, but there's guys on the undrafted, like I say, there's some guys like I won't be surprised to see someone like D'Angelo Amos actually make the roster. He's got something to potentially offer. It's linebackers where I'm a bit iffy, like you say. Anzalone has the experience. He also does have the upside of some familiarity coming from the Saints. Like, is it going to be someone that slots in well just because he knows him? But I do agree Derek Barnes is someone that could be a very fast riser up the depth chart. He could very well be a week 2-3 starter. Like I say, he may not earn that on his first day, but I think majority of that line is pretty solid. And yeah, I won't make too many changes. But like you say, there are guys like a player I really want to get snapped is Jalen Reeves, maybe. I would really like to see him in the second half of games, show what he can do. I don't think he'll necessarily be a starter, but he will again make a big contribution on special teams, and that could go a long way to getting starting snaps in games.
Yeah, I guess my projection is predicated on everyone staying fit, and obviously that's the main thing with Hand. Can he stay fit? And I do doubt that he can, if I'm honest. But if he's there, I do think that this team are going to ease the rookies in, because while getting the snaps is really important, it's also important not to kill their confidence too quickly. You know, it's a confidence-based league sometimes, and I think these rookies need a modicum of easing in. I'm not talking about redshirting these guys. I'm thinking maybe Hand starts the first 2 or 3 weeks, and then Levi starts the rest of the year, maybe, or something like that. I'm not going crazy. I don't think on either side of that argument. But I think that Levi is going to be a starter sooner rather than later, for sure. Will Harris is the one that sticks out to me. I mean, if you have a look at how the defense ran last year, everyone played badly. No one was in position. No one was playing smart. And that included him, but included everyone else too. And so was that a product of the coaching? And I'm crossing my fingers and praying to God that Will Harris is not the player we've seen in these last few years, that, you know, a defensive coordinator who was a DB coach and a very successful DB coach in New Orleans, and then a very good DB coach coming in from the Rams as well, can actually get a hold of him and say, right, do you want to learn how to play defense now? Because it sounds like to me that someone needs to kind of get him by the ear and say, right, this is what you do. All that stuff about the cornerbacks not really understanding leverage that we heard in I think it was rookie minicamp. It might be in OTAs. I can't quite remember. But these guys don't quite understand leverage yet. And it's like, some of these guys have been here for 2 or 3 years. What the fuck are you talking about? Why don't they understand this yet? So perhaps it's worrying that they aren't as far along, but then maybe that just explains a lot. And maybe guys like Will Harris can actually contribute on this defense. I'm not going to trust that that's going to be the truth. I'll believe it when I see it, but I live in hope. Okay, let's rotate along to the 4-3. Not a lot different there. Those outside linebackers become defensive ends. I'm going to drop defensive tackles. So Deshaun Hand comes out for me, and actually stick Jelani Tavai inside linebacker along with Anzalone and Collins. That means that Barnes and Reeves Mabin go up in that rotation, and the linebackers are actually very interchangeable. But I think if you go to a 4-man front, maybe you want a little bit more run defense in the linebacker, and maybe Jelani brings that more than someone else who can sub in. Otherwise, everyone else remains the same, with Aleem on the nose, maybe at 1 tech, Brockers at 3, and then Romeo and Flowers at the between 5 and 9 techs on the ends. Any thoughts on that sub? Who would you bring in as an inside linebacker? If you've got Collins and Anzalone, who are perhaps a bit more athletic, are you looking a bit more at run defense for that sub, or what are you thinking in 4-3?
Well, I'll start. I'm hoping that what we're going to see this year is a more athletic Jelani Tavai. That's purely based off what we're being told in the glowing reviews and like shedding weight. Like I think he understands that he needs a bit more athleticism. Maybe he feels he's been a bit sluggish before. I feel like I do agree he does lean towards more of a run defense, which is possibly something we'll need when we go to a 4-3. Like say we're going to have someone that's going to have to possibly meet a guy in the hole, plug a few holes. But so I can understand bringing him in. Anzalone, I don't know all that much about him. Like you say, I didn't hear much of him as a factor on that Saints defense, but I understand, like you say, he is someone that is he's a fairly big body, so he does put himself more towards that athletic run defense. Jamie Collins is just an good all rounder. Like you say, he's solid. I trust him as like saying that Mike linebacker position if he's going to play in the 3. He showed some flashes, so for me that's fair enough. Like dropping hand and just adjusting that line, going a bit more stout. I think stout would be more key in like a base 4-3, and they offer that.
What about you, Ant?
Yeah, I can't really have much more. I agree sort of where you've gone there, so not really a great deal more I can add on to that one.
Just to highlight why I'm trying to go run defense on that linebacker, you might be saying, what do you mean they want to go run defense? You've gone from 3 down linemen to 4 down linemen. Surely that's better for run defense. But no, as we highlighted earlier, 3-4 base is actually 5 linemen, 5-2 defense. So you're actually dropping one of those guys out into a 4-3, harder to defend against the run. So therefore, a more run defensive linebacker makes a bit more sense, I think, in that role. Also, what you can do in that is actually, with those 3 linebackers in play, Collins, Anzalone, and Tavai, you can end up rushing Collins and Anzalone from that position. They're both pretty fast, versatile guys. So there is the ability there to still bring that in as a 5-man rush.
The thing is, I don't think you'd need to use them too. I mean, Barnes is a specialist at run blocking. You see how he takes advantage of the gaps on the line. If you've got the guys making the gaps, he'll find them and he'll get in there. And, you know, if we sign Tavonte Beckett up, which I hope we do, he's exactly the same. You've got guys there who you can specifically bring in for those. They're a lot faster. They're a lot quicker. And, you know, they know what they're doing when it comes, you know, they tackle properly. They do everything you need for a good run defense. So we've got the guys there. We don't need to use Collins and that. I don't think that's his forte. So keep him where he's good.
And if you want to see a bit more on how Barnes is utilised and Jamar Jefferson as well, we are going to be doing our live tape reviews for those 2 players on Saturday. It'll be morning in the States, I think, and probably afternoon time on Saturday here. So check out our Twitter for more indications of when exactly that's going to be, but it will be this Saturday if you want to find out more about Barnes and Jefferson. Right, let's progress into our nickel packages, sub packages, starting with 3-3-5. And this is one is going to be a bit more focused on the runs. So I'm still thinking about 1st and 10, 2nd and medium here. And in this scheme, I've gone for at the nose, McNeil still, because it's run focused. Hand and Brockers at the defensive tackle positions. Acquire and Flowers still outside linebackers. Starting cornerbacks of Okuda and Oruwariye. Your inside linebackers are now only 1 with Collins. Anzalone I've dropped out for nickelbacker Mike Ford, who I think is going to win that job. Apparently, he has been taking reps with the ones in camps so far over Cornelder, which to me was a surprise. But from what Mike Ford actually did last year, he performed, well, he was probably the best cornerback we had. I mean, that's not a compliment, really, but he was the best cornerback we had, I think, when he came onto the field. He was fast, he stuck with his assignment. Most of the time, a completion was made, and he made a good tackle for a medium game. And, you know, that's probably not what you want out of your nickelback all the time, but we don't have another better one. So maybe he is going to win that job. And then your safeties, again, Walker and Harris. And for a run-focused scheme, you've got your 5 linemen, Collins, and then Mike Ford, who is a solid tackler at the nickelback position. What do you think, Ryan, on that? Would you be looking at Ford as that nickelback?
I prefer Ford because, for one, they saw something in him for him bringing him back. Like, he is a phenomenal tackler. It's like special teams, he graded one of the highest. Like he was one of the standouts on that on covering kicks and that unit, which tells me he understands how to make an open field tackle, which for a nickel is a very important job because, like I say, you're going to be possibly getting tight ends. You're going to be getting running backs that come out of the backfield on a toss or a swing route. Like you're going to be on the island when the wide receiver takes that corner away. The nickel can sometimes be left on there. And like say, if we're going to play cover two, he's going to have that whole flat. He's going to have everything from him to the sideline. And I've been there, I've played it. Like that is a big space and you've got to be able to keep that outside contained. When you get hands on, you cannot let that tackle be broken. He's long, he's rangy, he's well built. And like I say, he makes perfect sense for that nickel corner. Like I say, I'm surprised he's beating out Elder. Like Elder comes with a reputation of, well, being a pure nickel, but like I say, he doesn't offer as much versatility. He's a bit weaker, I think. He don't impress me with his size all that much. So Ford definitely coming back. Like I say, he got some money, he's coming back, and I can see him getting those starting reps. It's hard to agree with the rest. Like it's hard to deny the rest. Like I say, I'm leaning more towards Quinton Dunbar, but Armani could be a big riser this year. Like you say, he could get 3 or 4 interceptions easily because he plays the ball better than some of the other defensive backs. I agree also, like I say, this is still going to be a first and second down defense. You're going to be playing the run, 1st and 10, 2nd and 7. You're not just going to be hauling ass yet and covering the pass. Like they're keeping all this in front of you, stout front. So we're going to, like I say, be like rotating the likes of Anzalone and Derek Barnes. You're going to have that kind of Marshall on the field that Jamie Collins, he always is that kind. So that works for me. Like I say, a free front where you can offer a little bit of pressure. You still got that explosiveness that you got from Deshaun Hand. Like you say, like he's never been that. He doesn't like to be pushed around. So in a relatively weak, possible narrow free front, I still like him to be able to maintain some pressure and possibly a bit of disruption. So I feel fine with that. And like I say, your 2 outside linebackers, you don't necessarily need that much coverage from them. Like I say, they just almost can be used as decoys. Like you say, one of them, like say, if they drop and they sell it well, quick slant or anything, they could be there to just gobble up an interception. And that's what you want. You want them to be able to sell that drop back. So I'd be fairly based with that 3-3-5, yeah.
What about you, Ant? What do you? Okay, sorry, beg your pardon. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So, just moving on to a variation then on that 3-3-5, and now looking at the pass. So, this one's going to look a little bit different. So, pass orientated, you may be looking at 2nd and 3rd and longs. So, 2nd and 10 plus, 3rd and 7 plus. And you're dropping out a lot of your run defense guys. So nose tackle, I'm going with Levi Onwuzurike. He's shown he can do it in college, and against the pass, that should very much be a place we're looking to play him. Defensive tackles between the 3 and the 5 techs, I've got Romeo Okwara and Trey Flowers moving inside from that outside linebacker position to on the line, hand in the dirt. Those pass rushing defensive end / outside linebackers, I've then got Julian Okwara playing outside Romeo, and Charles Harris playing at that edge position. And interestingly enough, I find that those subs behind there are going to be Austin Bryant, Derek Barnes, and Jamie Collins in this scheme. Jamie Collins is going to be, though, the starter at the mic, although you've got plenty of options behind him: Tavai, Barnes, Anzalone, and Reeves Maybin. Nickelback's still going to be Mike Ford, and the rest of the backfield stays the same, the secondary. We'll come back to you, Ryan. What do you think in that the outside linebackers moving inside, you're dropping McNeil out of the starting lineup, Collins obviously still retaining the mic, Okwara and Harris maybe, or would you go Austin Bryant or Barnes perhaps as those pass rushers on the outside?
I'm not convinced that Austin Bryant will even make the team. So if we're talking that we think he will, he offers, like you say, he's shown flashes. But I do like the idea of possibly having Derek Barnes on the edge and Julian Okwara. Like what you just named there is it's what I say is it's a ferocious front. Like that is going to be a proper, let's collapse the pocket. Like this, you got your bull rushers, like you say, Acquire and Flowers. I want them straight up in the front, like you say, try squeeze these tackles and guards in, like you say, and then you've got to have the issues of Julian Acquire, like we've seen, like when he's like in his picture, like his arms are down here, he's got the length to hopefully get around the outside. Like I'm hoping he's going to have a big year when we put him on the edge and ask him to rush the passer, because I think he's going to be someone that I can see with a good swim move. He's going to have those hand techniques. Swap, he's going to be ripping and pulling, and I think he's a guy that's going to be able to get to the quarterback. So I think, like I say, this is where we've struggled. 2nd and 10, 3rd and 7, like that's been criminal for years. And like if we're able to generate pressure using this offensive front, like a 3rd and 7, that will make life so much easier for secondary. If they've got 1 or 2 seconds left to cover, that's just another chance for us to put a blanket on these wide receivers or tight ends, just cover them up. Like, so I'd be more than happy to put out that end. McNeil coming out makes a lot of sense because he's a big guy, he's a big body, like, but is he penetrating enough? Can he be that fast off the line as like Levi could? I don't think so. Like, I think Levi offers a bit more in that sense of hand strength, like turning, twisting a man, trying to generate a bit of pressure, collapse a pocket. I think that's where Levi's energy will come into it. So I think that is a strong front, and it's got potential to give the quarterback a lot of options. Like, we're going to be able to flush him out of the pocket, and then hopefully the 2 fast guys on the end hoover anything up, keep the outside contained, like, because the quarterback's going to struggle to get away from Derek Barnes or Julian Acquira, because they are someone that's got agility, and they're really good side-to-side guys with some pursuit. So I think that's going to be the funnest and exciting front we see all season.
Yeah, the front 5 there of Acquira, Onzarike, Flowers, and Harris just makes me happy to say it. I mean, 5 guys who legit can rush. Like, the defense is going to have to take that threat, every single one of them, seriously in terms of penetration. And that just gets my juices going. It really does. Don't sleep on McNeil in this front. I've taken him out, but the guy has a faster 10-yard split than Levi Onzarike. And Onzarike is famed for his short area quickness. So McNeil can move, former linebacker, former running back, former outfielder in the baseball. So he can move. I know he's put on the pounds since then, but I think that's something that he can definitely learn. Is to be a bit more of a penetrator. I don't think he's going to be doing it necessarily year 1, at least not as the primary option. But I do think if Levi's not an option, you might be looking at Williams, you might be looking at Brockers, but I think McNeil was an option to sub there. So let's see what happens. Let's. Oh, sorry. Did you want to come in, Ant?
I was just about to say, the thing is with a nose tackle, it's a dirty job. I think most of the work you do there is to create opportunities for others. So I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing if he's not rushing all the time. I think, as I said earlier, one of the big things we've been missing over the years here is just the ability to make gaps in those offensive lines for guys to exploit. And I think that's just where we need to use McNeil this year, is just get those gaps open. You can get at runners as they go, and he's really good at that, but just get the gaps and expose the quarterback. So, like, I'm not fussed if he doesn't go into that role, and if you listen to him talk, he's quite happy doing the dirty work in that line for others to take the credit. So, but yeah, he's going to be a great player. I think he's going to be the best rookie we got this year for me, if used properly.
Yeah, just to briefly mention the 4-2-5 nickel, but there's no great frills here, so I'm going to skip over it really. It's going to be a bit more of a kind of variant on the 4-3 and 3-4 in terms of it being a first down thing we can do. I've kept McNeil and Brockers as defensive tackles, and I've actually dropped out the nose position entirely. And you've got Jelani Tavai back there now in favour of having Deshaun Hand, and you've got Mike Ford then in as a nickel back as well. So that looks kind of fairly similar to what we've discussed already. So let's go and talk about the dime positions. So a bit more looking at pass defense now. So 4-1-6 formation or 3-2-6, but I'll focus on 4-1-6 to start. We've got Levi Onzarike and Michael Brockers at D tackle. Defensive ends or outside linebackers as Acquire and Flowers Romeo. That is Your one inside linebacker is Jamie Collins, and then the rest of the secondary is exactly the same, apart from your dime backer now comes in and you've got Quentin Dunbar. So that's your cornerback 3 for me, cornerback 2 for Ryan on the field. So he'd have either Amani coming in or perhaps Melifonwu or Corn Elder, but I'll throw that over to him in a second. So obviously you've got your 6 defensive backs in this formation. You've got 2 outside linebackers, defensive ends, who obviously can drop into coverage but are primarily going to rush. You're looking at containing the pass. Running isn't really an option here. What do you think on Dunbar, or I guess for you, Amani as the dime backer?
I like Dunbar, but like you say, I think primarily when we're looking to stop the pass, this is where Melifonwu comes into his game, because like you say, he has those passes defended. He's got that breakup, so he's got from what I've read from draft buffer, like I say, he's got hip work. So like you say, if you're going to be playing a cover 3 here, like you say, if we're not going to be covering the run too much, you don't necessarily need that zone defense. So allowing stuff to pass through the middle should be okay. He's got that length, so I trust him on the back end. So this is when he will most likely be on the field, I imagine, starting, because he won't start on the outside because no one ever does. But I would like to see Okudah, Dunbar, and Melifonwu like in a prime passing position. I think that'd be someone that I trust primarily on the outside to make those plays. I agree. Like say, you've got the 2 outside linebackers. This is where you can have a bit of fun. Because, like I say, if the defense has been kept honest and the offense isn't sure, if you drop one of them back or even both of them in across the middle, and a quarterback wants to hit a tight end, that's where they could come unstuck. Like I say, that they could be looking straight into a passing lane where suddenly Romeo Okwara's sat right there. He's dropped 3 yards and just sat in a hole waiting. Like if the offense didn't respect the dropbacks before that enough and just fall right into our hands, that'd be perfect. So that's the kind of thing I want to see. So I agree with pretty much everyone else. I think this is where like you will see the likes of, like I say, it's not too run heavy. So you can have the likes of Levi or McNeil. They're able to rotate. Like you say, you don't necessarily need the nose tackle. Like it's not primarily a big need here. Like you don't have to put a big guy in the center, so you're able to split the gap either side of him, make him work a bit or make him guess. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think the safeties will be the most interesting on this field, like you say, because this is where you could have the likes of Dean Marlowe, where it could show like he's coming, possibly show blitz, but like I say, then he could drop off very quickly, sit there in that position as a safety. So I think he is going to be someone that will benefit from a scheme like this, where it's a primarily passing down.
Yeah, preempting me there. So moving into the giant dime, that's where your dime backer is actually a safety. Instead of Dunbar, I've put in Dean Marlowe as that dime backer. So you're absolutely on the same lines as I am there with the third safety. You can show blitz come into the box. He can drop back into coverage. So yeah, that's definitely an option there. The 3-2-6 dime. So instead of dropping out a linebacker in favor of the dime back, a lineman in favor of dime back, you've dropped him in favor of a linebacker. So you are going to have, as I said before, Dunbar would be that dime backer with it being 4 corners. And I would be hands in dirt, Okwara, Levi Onwuzurike, and Trey Flowers, because you'd be looking more at pass rushing from those points and not looking at worrying about the run. So those 3 guys, great penetrators. And then you've got Anzalone and Collins. Although actually, I think now on reflection, I would be tempted to put Barnes in here as a potential 4th rusher. But otherwise, things are very much similar to what we discussed. And then that 3-2-6 giant dime. So same down lineman. But what have I done there? I can't read my own writing. Instead of I don't know what I've done there. I think I've got too many players. I have. Never mind. Yeah, Marlowe, Harris, and Walker as your 3 safeties, and then Ford, Okudah, and Oruwariye. I'm fine. Yeah. And then Collins Anzalone as your linebackers, Ford, Kuda, and Oruwariye as corners, Aquara, Flowers, and Ozarike on the line. And then looking at a funky formation, you've got your 2-4-5. So this is really trying to put the pressure on the defense as to where the pressure is coming from. You've got Onzarike and Flowers as your D tackles, actually dropping Romeo out of the lineup altogether at the starter positions here. I've put Julian Aquara and Derek Barnes as the outside linebackers in the scheme. Anzalone and Collins at inside linebacker, Ford, Oriwari and Kuda at corners, and Walker and Harris at the safety positions. What do you think about those last few that we haven't discussed? Anything that you want to pick up on, any quirks of those formations you think are interesting?
If I'm going 2-4-6, I think I am going to potentially, I'm going to go intense. So I'm going to put someone like drop Anzalone. I'm going to put someone in like Jalen Reeves-Maybin. I'm going to put in as many fast athletic guys as I can, because I don't want them to be able to guess who I'm going to blitz. Right, say, because we've got like, say, Barnes and Aquara. This is where you're going to stunt. So you're going to have the two guys in the middle possibly cross each other, try confuse the O-line. Like say, you could just say Deal or House. You could just send a lot and get everyone to try fill a gap, like you say. But necessarily when you've got a two front, how many holes are actually going to be there? So you don't want to show your cards. You don't want to show the whole hand, because they could lead you into that. They could trap you by letting guys come through. So it's going to be one of them ones where you've got to be careful, like don't get a bit carried away. I agree, like say 3 safeties on the field. It's going to be like say Walker, Harris, and then you've got Marlowe, who's going to be like say that dime kind of guy. Like say you can show him in the box, you can drop him deep. Like say if you're going to play cover 3 and just give them all a third each, if you're going quite conservative on the back end. So I think that would be quite a fun formation. Like you could have a lot of these incredibly fast young linebackers who don't want to get mixed up with the O-line. Like you say, if you can get 1 or 2 of them to get a free hole or a free shot quarterback, get it through, they could meet in the middle and it could be absolute carnage.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that 5-0 and 6-0 package that I was talking about earlier that the Saints used to run, I'm assuming that kind of in this 2-4-5 look, you're looking at 4 guys back there who can actually line up in that 6-0 coverage, because they're so athletic that they can drop back all of them, or they can all come. It's extremely versatile, right?
Yeah, like you say, you will keep them guessing. You could drop back 4, you could drop back 2, or like you say, if needs be, and you just want to get off the field, you could send them all, like you say, and go extremely attacking and just try complete crush the whole pocket, because like I said, they won't be able to man up for you on the offensive line. If they don't have a tight end or anyone, like I say, they're missing someone on either side of the line, you're going to attack that and go heavy. So you're going to possibly double up or line 2 up, stacked over this one side. So you can that way attack one side of the line primarily and try and flush the quarterback out. So you can do whatever you want on that side. Like they will have to eventually learn and maybe go 2 tight end set, which would be very difficult for them. It'd take away something that they want to do.
Sounds good, man. Anything else you want to bring up on defense in terms of scheme, in terms of formations or coverages or anything like that that's occurred to you while we've been talking?
Like I say, with coverages, I think it's going to be very interesting, because for years now we've been spoon-fed. We want man. We're going to play a lot of press, but we're not going to give you the linemen. We're not going to give you the personnel to play press defense. Now I think we're leaning away from that. Like you say, we're getting these long rangier guys. Like we brought in Marathon, where they've got Oruwariye. They're not guys who want to mess about at the line of scrimmage. Like you say, they're not always got the best hips or the best turn speed, but they're able to come down quickly. They can go around you or over you. So I'm hoping, like you say, we do play a lot of cover 2, keep 2 safeties, bit of zone, mix it up. I would like to see less faffing about the line of scrimmage, because, like you say, with a Kuda, when one of them gets a knock or gets an injury, if you know one of them's got a dodgy groin, beating out the line of scrimmage is going to be really easily, because, like I say, they're flipping their hips and getting them turned. would be a lot more difficult to defend against that. So I'm hoping we're going to give a bit more of a cushion, because too many times, like you say, we saw like Justin Coleman and Nichols, they were getting beat too soon. Like they would sell their soul, come right up to the line, like in the end zone, run a quick slant, and that's it. They'd be gone, coverage blown. So I would rather make them beat us sitting deeper, just give that, like, say, 5 to 7 yards, like play a bit more cover three, like mix it up just a bit more, and not, I don't want to go too heavy man, too heavy zone, and like make it too complicated. Like I'd like to be able to just like have a blanket, be able to see everything in front of us for once, because I feel like there were a lot of times where we didn't know what was going on in front of us because we were too close. Like saying, we were just guessing and people were getting behind us. So hopefully that's kind of thing that we're going to get brought.
Do you think that maybe while the coaching scheme and the scheme and the coach's ideas are being instilled in the players, while they're actually being taught how to play the position, which clearly they haven't been over the last few years, that maybe they'll start off playing off, giving them that sort of cushion, and then as the ideas take hold, everyone kind of realizes that press man is potentially the most effective way to play, but it comes with the highest risk of, if you get beat, then that's going to be disastrous. And so as the ideas take hold and hopefully injuries stay away, the players remain fit, and we might transition into something that resembles what we were trying to do before, but just more successfully? Or do you think that we'll actually just play off a bit more, or that's what you'd like to see generally?
I'd go with the first one. Like I say, if players are struggling with leverage, which is something that you need at the line of scrimmage, like if you're going to take a step back with your left foot and show them inside leverage, do you want them to go inside, try jam and force them in? Or if you're going to take a step out, like try and make them beat you around the edge, like if you can't grasp that, you need to give them a cushion so you can read their hips from a further distance, because their hips tell you what they're going to do. Like you will know if they're going inside or outside, and as they gradually understand that, you can move them closer to the line of scrimmage to a point where they get to like Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey now is a shutdown corner because he learned his trade further away, and now he's nasty. Like I said, the line of scrimmage, he jams you, he'll punch you, he'll give you that pop. And until you can learn to give that pop and throw a guy off his route, you have to be able to give him a bit of a cushion, give him a bit of blanket. Yeah, they're getting a bit of a run up on you, but you're able to judge better what they're going to do. And like I say, you're making them work harder to get past you. So I'd like to see us start a bit further away and work our way in, and not just, like I say, like we did in previous regimes under Patricia. We threw them at the line of scrimmage and it's sink or swim. And too many times, like I say, Akuda was getting burned because, like I say, he was dinged, he was banged up. And like you say, he was going to line of scrimmage, bang, in, out, and someone behind him. If he was 3-4 yards deeper, that just wouldn't have happened. He would have had that split second to react. So for now, cover two until you learn leverage, and then you can drill in cover one, like say when you've got the players who you think are able to do it. So I'm all for that. Just creep close to line of scrimmage as they get better.
Like PFF says, when it comes to grading corners, at the end of the day, if you stand off and you kind of concede 4 or 5 yards, yeah, they're going to march down the field, but quite slowly. And, it's not a disaster. You're still allowing the offense to commit a mistake here and there, have an off pass or, whatever. They still got to execute every single time. But if you get beat for a disastrous play over the top, that's worth losing a couple of yards here and there 10 times over. So, a cornerback has to have one bad play a game, and he's a bad corner. Wide receivers, conversely, only really need to have a couple of good plays each game, and they're a good wide receiver. So it's like the inverse of the position, obviously, because they play against each other doing the same thing. But corners cannot afford to make game-breaking mistakes, because it ends everything that you're trying to do. And that's what we saw last year, is defense woefully out of its depth trying to do something it just wasn't equipped to do.
Yeah, I'd rather give up 10 receptions of 5 yards that ends up in a field goal than give up one reception of 76 yards that ends up in a 3-yard rushing score. Like, end of day, you will be the player that was identified on tape as that's where they march down the field. Whereas, like you say, if you're able to keep the play in front of you, you're also managing the clock, because one of those drives takes a lot longer than the other. Like I say, so if you're able to know where your first down marker is and make them work for it on a few plays, just giving up odd reception, like if they're running a hitch and they're coming back, you just come through the back of them. As long as you're there and wrapping up and making the tackle, that's fine. If you get burnt for 60 yards, like say, because you were too aggressive line of scrimmage, you will get dug out and you're most likely going to get pulled off the field. So it's quality over quantity. That's why I would say, like you say, play better, but you're willing to give up a few more different plays. But like I say, they can be cheaper throws. You can just take those little dump offs. Fine, I'll give you that, but you're not going to go and turn my back and have me running and trying to chase a guy down.
Yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it for this one. Our next episode is going to be on Tuesday, 6th of July. So that's just going to be just after 4th of July. So from us, happy Independence Day. Have a lovely weekend, guys, over the pond. On the 6th, we're going to be looking at the first episode of our analysis of the 2022 draft class for the Detroit Lions. So looking out for players that we're going to be having a look at over the next 12 months, people who could eventually end up in Detroit. And we're going to be focusing on a couple of positions of need. First one is the scenario in which Jared Goff doesn't play well, which even if you're a Goff stan, I think you have to realise that him not succeeding is at least a possibility. I'm very hopeful that Goff will do very well in the scheme suited to him, but he might not work out and might need a quarterback. So we're going to be looking at quarterbacks. We're also going to be looking at wide receivers. As it stands, I think we only have 2 returning wide receivers next year. And so we're clearly going to need to draft 1 or 2, if not 3. So that's going to be a particular position of need. So check in on Tuesday for our quarterback and wide receiver look ahead to the 2022 draft. As I mentioned earlier as well, we're going to be looking at Jermar Jefferson and Derek Barnes on Saturday. That's going to be a live film review, time TBC, probably morning in the States and afternoon UK time. Just remains me to thank my co-host in absentia now, trying to deal with a personal issue, and Ryan. I'll just quickly run down the socials so I can say goodbye. So YouTube, Facebook, I suppose Royal Lions UK, Twitch, ROTL_UK, Twitter is the same. Facebook group is Detroit Lions Fantasy Go 1 Private Wide, on Instagram, ROTL.UK, on the web, RoyalLionsUK.com. Articles about our draftees are being released, drip fed there. Subscribe and rate us 5 stars on your podcast provider. I'm Matthew Turner. We'll see you on Tuesday. Let's go Lions, one pride.
One pride.